I see you're very promising, if you understand what I mean.
The first thing I notice is the silence. Not the quiet kind. This is curated silence, polished and obedient. The kind that settles whenever Richard Hale steps out of his glass office. Conversations don't stop. They soften. Laughter doesn't die. It redirects itself toward him, like a trained response. I stand near the reception desk, badge still warm from the printer, watching people adjust their posture as if an invisible string has been pulled from above. Hale and Partners smells like money and restraint. Dark wood, clean lines, expensive art that looks like it was chosen by someone who doesn't actually care about art. I tell myself it's nerves, first day jitters, new firm, new city, new life. I've earned this place, top of my class, brutal internships, nights fueled by caffeine and ambition. No one gives you a corner office by accident. Emily Carter? The receptionist asks, already knowing the answer. She smiles the way people do when they're polite but distant, like she's learned not to get attached. She points me down the corridor. Mr. Hale is ready for you. Ready. The word lands strangely. Richard Hale's office is larger than my first apartment. Floor-to-ceiling windows, a city skyline that looks owned rather than admired. He doesn't stand when I enter. He doesn't look at my resume either. It lies unopened on his desk. My name still visible in bold letters, like a label he doesn't need to read to know what's inside. He studies me instead. You're ambitious, he says calmly, fingers steepled, voice smooth with practice. I can tell. There's a pause, deliberate. A smile that doesn't quite reach his eyes. Just don't be like the others, he continues. They think hard work is enough. I nod, because that's what you do when the person across from you controls your future. I tell myself this is normal. Corporate theater. Power testing. But something under his words crawls along my spine, a quiet warning I can't yet translate. He finally leans forward. Talent opens doors. Understanding how things really work keeps them open. I wait for him to explain. He doesn't. Instead, he stands and circles the desk, stopping just close enough that I can smell his cologne. Expensive, intentional. He gestures toward the window, the city below us reduced to a model. This firm rewards loyalty, he says, discretion, flexibility. Flexibility. The word lingers too long. I leave his office with a handshake that lasts a second more than necessary and a welcome packet I won't read. As I step back into the corridor, the silence breaks. People exhale. Someone laughs too loudly. Life resumes. Sarah from compliance introduces herself by the coffee machine. She looks competent, sharp, tired. First day? She asks. I nod. Her smile flickers. Good luck. Not congratulations. Not welcome. Luck. As the day unfolds, I start to feel it. The invisible architecture of fear. Eyes that avoid contact. Conversations that lower when certain names are mentioned. Richard's name. Always Richard. He passes desks and leaves a wake behind him. A hand on a shoulder. A comment that sounds harmless if you don't listen too closely. You should stay late more often, he tells a junior associate with a grin. That's how you move faster here. She laughs. She doesn't look happy. By late afternoon, my excitement has thinned into something sharper. Awareness, maybe. Or instinct. I catch my reflection in the bathroom mirror, perfectly pressed suit, hair in place, expression carefully neutral. I look like I belong here. I wonder what that actually means. At 5:30, an email lands in my inbox. From Richard Hale. Subject: Welcome. Glad to have you on the team. Big things ahead. Nothing explicit, nothing wrong. Still, my stomach tightens. As I shut down my computer, I realize something I can't unknow. This place doesn't break people loudly. It erodes them, slowly, quietly, with smiles and opportunities and promises of more. I walk out into the evening, city lights flickering on like a signal, and I tell myself I'll be fine, that I'll learn the rules and play smart, that whatever game is being played here, I can control my side of the board. I don't know it yet, but the table is already tilted. And Richard Hale is very good at pretending that's just how careers are made. Patterns don't announce themselves. They wait for you to stop making excuses. By the end of my first week, I stop telling myself I'm imagining things. It starts small. Too small to report. Too small to call out without sounding dramatic. Richard Hale doesn't grope, doesn't shout, doesn't send explicit emails. He's smarter than that. He touches just long enough to be confusing. He smiles just warmly enough to blur intention. I see his hand on Sarah's shoulder while she's explaining a compliance issue. His fingers rest there as if they belong, as if her body is just another piece of office furniture. She stiffens but keeps talking. When she finishes, he nods approvingly. "You'd move faster if you stayed late more often," he says casually. "Commitment matters." His hand slides away like nothing happened. Later, in the hallway, I ask her if she's okay. She looks at me for a long second, weighing something. Then she shrugs. "You get used to it." That answer scares me more than anger would have. In meetings, I notice how he speaks to women versus men. With men, it's sharp, transactional, respectful in a cold way. With women, there's always an extra layer, personal comments wrapped in mentorship. "Great analysis," he tells a male associate. "Send me the numbers." To a woman, "You're sharp, and you present yourself well." Clients notice that. Present yourself, like a product. At lunch, I sit with two junior associates, Lisa and Naomi. They talk about weekend plans in the careful way people do when they don't want to reveal too much. Lisa lowers her voice. "He asked if I was seeing anyone." Naomi exhales. "That's nothing. He asked me why I don't smile more." Lisa snorts quietly. "Did you tell him?" "I smiled," Naomi says. "That's usually the right answer." They notice me listening and fall silent. I want to ask questions, but I don't know which ones are safe yet. The break room has rules no one writes down. Don't complain too loudly. Don't ask why someone disappeared from the org chart. Don't talk about what happens after hours. Because things do happen after hours. I hear it in fragments. Whispers over coffee. Half sentences cut off when someone walks by. If you say no, you disappear. He never puts anything in writing. He's careful. She was on track for partner and then gone. Fear wears business casual here. It blends in perfectly. One afternoon, Richard stops by my desk. I feel him before I see him, like a pressure change in the room. People look up, then quickly look back down. "How are you settling in, Emily?" he asks. "Great," I reply. Automatic. Polite. He leans against the edge of my desk, too close. "Ambition suits you. You don't hide it." "I don't see a reason to," I say. His smile widens, amused. "Good. The women who go far here understand one thing." He pauses, enjoying the attention. Visibility. Then he straightens and walks away, leaving that word behind like a fingerprint. That evening, I stay late. Not because he suggested it, but because I want to observe. Offices empty slowly. Some lights go dark earlier than others. Certain women linger longer, their faces tight with calculation. At 8:30, I see Sarah leaving his office. Her hair is slightly disheveled. Her smile is gone. She doesn't notice me watching. In the bathroom, she splashes water on her face. When she sees me in the mirror, her expression closes. "Don't," she says quietly. "Don't what?" I ask. "Don't try to be brave alone," she replies. "This place eats that first." I want to tell her she shouldn't have to endure this, that it's wrong, that there are laws, policies, consequences. But the words feel naive here, like bringing a pamphlet to a knife fight. As I pack up to leave, I get another email from Richard. Strong work today. You're making the right impressions. No context, no specifics. I stare at the screen longer than I should. On the ride home, the city feels different than it did a week ago. Harder. Sharper. Like I've stepped into a room where everyone knows the rules except me, and the cost of learning them is higher than I expected. I think about Sarah's shoulders, Naomi's forced smile, Lisa's lowered voice. I think about how carefully Richard Hale never crosses a line that can be proven, and I realize something else, something colder and clearer. This isn't about sex. It's about control. And now that I see it, I can't unsee it. The moment he closes the door, the air changes. Not dramatically. Not like in movies where tension announces itself with music or raised voices. It's subtler than that. The quiet becomes heavier, as if the room has decided to listen. Richard Hale doesn't sit right away. He walks past me, unhurried, and pours himself a glass of water. His back is to me while he does it, which somehow feels deliberate. Like he wants me to stand there, unsure of where to put my eyes, my hands, my thoughts. Relax, he says lightly. You look like you're about to defend a thesis. I force a small smile. My palms are damp. I hate that detail. Hate that my body reacts before my mind catches up. You wanted to see me? I ask. He turns, finally, and gestures toward the chair across from his desk. Sit. I do. He doesn't. Instead, he leans back against the desk, arms crossed, studying me the way people do when they think they already know the ending. You're doing well, he says. Better than I expected. Thank you, I reply. Neutral. Safe. He tilts his head. Do you know why I brought you in here? I consider several answers. None of them feel right. Feedback? I offer. He chuckles softly. Ambition, he repeats, like a favorite word. I like to understand what motivates people. He finally takes his seat, spinning it slightly before settling in. The movement is casual, practiced. He leans back, fingers resting on the armrests. You see, he continues, most people here think there's a formula. Hours in, results out. They believe the system is fair. His smile sharpens. It's adorable. I don't respond. I feel like any sound I make will be used against me. He taps the desk once, thoughtfully. Careers aren't built on effort alone. They're built on access. He pauses, watching my face. Trust, he adds. Proximity. The silence stretches. I hear the faint hum of the building, the muted movement of people outside this room who have no idea what's happening inside it. Then he says it. Get under my desk. That's where your career growth is. The words are delivered evenly, almost bored, like he's asking me to fetch a file, not crude, not shouted, polished to the point of absurdity. For a second, I genuinely wonder if I misheard him. I'm sorry, I say. He smiles, unbothered. You heard me. My heartbeat thunders in my ears. The room feels smaller, the walls closer. Every instinct screams at me to stand up, to leave, to say something. Anything. But my body doesn't move. He watches this with interest. Relax, he says again. I'm not asking for an answer right now. He leans forward slightly. Smart girls like to think. I swallow. Is this a test? He laughs, delighted. Everything is a test. I feel anger rising now, hot and clean, cutting through the shock. You realize how inappropriate this is. Inappropriate? He raises an eyebrow. Emily, no one is forcing you. You're free to say no. The word free lands like a joke. He gestures vaguely around the office. But choices have consequences. Visibility, opportunity, momentum. I stand up. My legs are unsteady, but they hold. I came here to work, I say. My voice is steady. I'm proud of that. Not to do this. For the first time, his smile fades just a fraction. Of course you did, he says. So did everyone else. There's a knock on the door. Sharp. Unexpected. Mr. Hale? A voice calls from outside. The client is online too. Richard's expression resets instantly. He turns back to me, all warmth and professionalism restored. We'll continue this later, he says softly. Think about what you want. I walk out without another word, my pulse still racing. The corridor feels unreal, like I've stepped out of a different dimension. People type, laugh, complain about deadlines. The normalcy is almost offensive. At my desk, I sit down and stare at my screen. Emails blur together. Words lose meaning. My phone vibrates. A message from an unknown number. Not today? That's okay. Patience is part of growth. I don't reply. I pack up early and leave the building with my head held high, refusing to give anyone the satisfaction of seeing me shaken. But once I'm outside, the cool air hits me, and my hands start to tremble. On the subway home, I replay the scene over and over. His tone, his certainty. The way he assumed compliance wasn't a question of if, only when. This wasn't a mistake. It wasn't a misunderstanding. It was an offer he'd made before. And the worst part, the part that makes my stomach turn, is realizing how routine it was for him. How practiced. How many women had stood where I stood, weighing their futures against their dignity. When I get home, I don't cry. I sit on the edge of my bed and make a decision instead. If this is how careers are made here, then I need to understand exactly how the machine works. Every lever, every weak point. Because I already know one thing for sure. I'm not getting under his desk. And I'm not leaving quietly either. The message arrives at 7:42 p.m., just as I'm rinsing a mug I haven't used. Unknown number. Again. My place is quiet. We could talk about your future without interruptions. No greeting, no name. As if we're already past formalities. As if the invitation itself is a favor. I set the phone down on the counter and let the screen go dark. The apartment feels too silent, like it's holding its breath with me. Outside, traffic hums, life moving forward without hesitation, without bargaining. I don't reply. The next morning, the office feels different. Not hostile. Worse. Warm. Good morning, Emily, Richard says loudly as I walk in, his voice carrying across the open floor. Heads turn. Glad you're early. Early. It's 8:55. He smiles at me the way men smile when they believe they've already won, when they think resistance is just a phase before consent. I keep my face neutral, professional, perfectly composed. At 10, he calls a meeting. High-risk project. Tight deadline. The kind of assignment that can make or break a junior associate. Give Emily the lead, he says, casually, like it's an afterthought. A ripple moves through the room. Surprise, curiosity, envy. Then he adds, louder for everyone to hear. I invest in people who know how to be flexible. The word lands exactly where he wants it to. A few people laugh nervously. Others stare at their notes. No one meets my eyes. I nod. Understood. The meeting moves on, but my skin feels too tight, like I'm wearing a suit a size too small. This is his strategy. Reward and implication. Opportunity wrapped around expectation. He's careful not to say anything explicit. Careful not to leave fingerprints. At lunch, Naomi pulls me aside near the elevators. Be careful, she whispers. He doesn't give things for free. I know, I say. She hesitates. If you say yes, it doesn't stop at dinner. I look at her then. Really look. There's something exhausted behind her eyes, something resigned. I wonder how much of herself she's already negotiated away. I won't, I say. She studies my face, then sighs. Just don't be alone with him. Too late for that advice. The afternoon passes in a blur of documents and deadlines. The project is complex, demanding, the kind of work I'm good at. The kind that reminds me why I chose this career in the first place. For a few hours, I almost forget him. Almost. At 6:30, another message. Still working? I admire dedication. At 7:10, this project could change your trajectory. At 8, you don't have to be difficult. I finally reply. Please keep communication work-related. The typing bubble appears, disappears, appears again. Emily, don't misunderstand me. I'm trying to help you. Help. The word feels obscene. The next day, his tone shifts. Cooler. Sharper. He critiques my work publicly, questioning decisions he approved hours earlier. He interrupts me in meetings. He lets silence stretch after I speak, inviting doubt. Then, just as suddenly, he switches again. Strong recovery, he says in front of the team. You learn fast. The whiplash is intentional. Punishment and praise, alternating just enough to keep balance impossible. By Thursday, I'm exhausted. Not from the workload, but from the vigilance, the constant calculation, where to stand, when to speak, how much eye contact is too much. At 9:47 p.m., as I'm shutting down my computer, the message comes. Come to my place. Tonight. No pretense now. No career talk. Just expectation. I sit there, office nearly empty, fluorescent lights humming above me. For a split second, a dangerous thought slips in. What if I went? What if I controlled the situation? What if I gave him just enough to make him back off? I hate myself for even thinking it. This is how the trap works. This is how rational women end up blaming themselves. I stand, grab my coat, and leave without replying. In the elevator, my reflection looks calm, capable, unbroken. But my hands shake when the doors close. On the ride home, I think about sex. Not desire, not pleasure, but sex as currency, as leverage, as a toll booth on ambition. I think about how many careers have passed through his bedroom disguised as mentorship. When I reach my apartment, I don't turn on the lights. I sit on the couch in the dark and let the anger finally surface. Not explosive, focused, clean. He thinks he's being patient. He thinks time is on his side. He's wrong. Because while he's testing how far he can push me, I'm doing something else entirely. I'm watching, learning. And for the first time since I walked into Hale and Partners, the fear begins to shift shape, into something sharper, into intent. Power always has a spine. You just have to find where it bends. I start staying late for a different reason now. Not to prove dedication, not to invite attention, but to listen, to read, to map the invisible structure that keeps Richard Hale untouchable. It doesn't take long to notice what everyone avoids. One client's name appears everywhere. Meeting agendas, billing summaries, whispered conversations that stop when someone new enters the room. A multinational logistics firm with a bland name and obscene money. $20 million a year. Renewable. Evergreen. Untouchable. The contract. It's mentioned the way people talk about a loaded gun sitting on the table. No one touches it. Everyone knows it's there. I ask questions carefully. Too carefully to look suspicious. Why is this account handled only by senior partners? I ask a mid-level associate one evening. He hesitates. It's sensitive. Because of the size? He exhales. Because of Richard? The answer settles something inside me. A junior lawyer named Alex, barely out of law school, brilliant, nervous, Offers me coffee one night when we're both still in the office past 9. He glances toward Richard's darkened office before speaking. You didn't hear this from me, he says quietly. But without that contract, Hale and Partners collapses. I don't react. I let him keep talking. The board tolerates him because he brings that client in every year. They look the other way. Compliance gets buried. HR gets selective. Why hasn't anyone challenged it? I ask. Alex laughs without humor. Who would? It's airtight. Personally negotiated. Richard's fingerprints are all over it. Everything has fingerprints, I say, even when someone tries to wipe them away. That night, I request access to archived agreements under the pretense of cross-referencing clauses for my project. No one questions it. No one ever questions diligence. The contract is thick, dense, written in language designed to intimidate rather than clarify. Richard's style. I read it once, then again, then a third time, slower. At 2 a.m, I find it. Not a dramatic error, not a typo, a condition. A quiet clause buried deep in the renewal section, referencing ethical compliance and executive conduct. Vague enough to ignore, specific enough to weaponize. If violated, the client can terminate immediately. No penalty, no warning. I sit back in my chair and laugh softly, alone in the empty office. That's the spine. Over the next week, pressure ramps up. Richard corners me after a meeting. You've been distant. I've been busy, I reply. He studies me. I don't like being ignored. I don't like being misunderstood, I say evenly. His eyes harden. Careful. Later that day, my project resources are cut without explanation. An analyst is reassigned. Deadlines stay the same. Then, the messages start again. You're making this harder than it needs to be. Pride is expensive. I can make this go away. I don't respond. Instead, I start documenting everything. Times, dates, witnesses. I don't confront. I collect. One evening, Sarah stops by my desk. You're playing a dangerous game, she whispers. I know, I say. She swallows. If you need anything, I'll back you. It's the first time someone has said that out loud. By Friday, Richard's patience is gone. He steps into my office without knocking. You think you're smarter than me? I think I'm observant, I reply. He leans in. You don't want to be nobody, do you? I look him in the eye. I don't want to be yours. Something breaks then. Not loudly, but permanently. That night, alone again with the contract glowing on my screen, I realize the truth. This isn't about revenge. It's about removing the leverage that lets men like him exist without consequence. $20 million doesn't just protect Richard Hale. It enables him. And tomorrow morning, that protection is going to disappear. Pressure doesn't always feel like force. Sometimes it feels like someone slowly closing a window while you're still breathing. Monday morning, my calendar is empty where it shouldn't be. Meetings I was scheduled to lead are gone, invitations quietly revoked. My access to certain folders now returns polite errors. Nothing dramatic. Nothing obvious. Just enough to remind me who controls the oxygen. Richard doesn't speak to me directly at first. He doesn't have to. He delegates the discomfort. An associate tells me my memo needs additional review. Finance asks me to resubmit expense reports already approved. HR emails to clarify expectations around availability. Availability. Another word that's learned a second meaning here. By noon, I finally get what he wants. A message. Not anonymous this time. My door. Now. I take my notebook. My phone. Nothing else. When I step into his office, he doesn't offer me a seat. You're making mistakes, he says flatly. I'm meeting every requirement, I reply. He scoffs. You're testing my patience. I meet his gaze. I thought you valued ambition. I value loyalty, he snaps. Then softer. And gratitude. There it is. The unpaid debt he believes I owe simply for being noticed. You've had opportunities others would kill for, he continues, and you're acting like I'm the problem. You are, I say calmly. The word lands between us, solid and undeniable. His jaw tightens. He circles the desk slowly, stopping close enough that I can feel the heat of him. You think you're untouchable, he says quietly. You're not. I'm aware, I reply. He leans in, voice dropping. I'd be more patient at home. The implication hangs there, thick and ugly. I don't step back. I won't go to your place. His smile returns, but it's thin now, controlled, dangerous. You don't get to set the terms, he says. This firm is full of women who understood that. Then this firm is full of victims, I answer. For a second, I think he might raise his voice. Instead, he straightens, adjusts his cuffs. You don't want to be nobody, Emily, he says, almost kindly. This industry forgets people fast. I smile. It surprises him. I don't want to be yours. That's when the pressure becomes visible. By the end of the day, my name is quietly removed from the high-risk project. No explanation, no conversation, just gone. Naomi texts me from across the floor. I'm sorry. Sarah doesn't look at me at all. The message is clear. Fall back in line or disappear. That night, the messages escalate. Last chance. You're burning bridges. Don't confuse pride with power. At 11:18 p.m., the final one arrives. I can still protect you. I turn my phone face down and open my laptop instead. I pull up the contract again. The clause. The spine. And for the first time since this began, I feel something close to calm. Pressure works when the target believes there's no alternative. When fear has nowhere to go except inward. But fear is energy. And energy, directed properly, becomes momentum. Richard thinks he's closing the window. What he doesn't realize is that I've already found the door. And tomorrow, I'm going to open it. The building is almost empty when I arrive. Early morning has a particular honesty to it. No performances, no witnesses, no excuses. The cleaning crew nods at me like I belong here, because I do. Or at least, I still do. For now. The conference room on the 22nd floor smells faintly of disinfectant and stale coffee. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlook the city, gray and indifferent, as if it's waiting to see what kind of person I'm about to be today. I place the contract on the table. $20 million, bound in paper and arrogance. I've memorized every clause by now. I could recite the termination condition in my sleep. Ethical violations, abuse of authority, conduct exposing the client to reputational risk. Vague enough to ignore when convenient, precise enough to destroy someone when applied. I'm not shaking. That surprises me. I check the cameras first, not to avoid them, but to confirm they're working. Red light blinking, recording, time-stamped. Everything exactly where it should be. I don't want secrecy. I want evidence. I sit down and open the folder slowly, deliberately, like I'm performing a ritual rather than committing a crime. My hands move with intention, calm, controlled. No rush. This isn't anger. This is clarity. The first page tears easily. The sound is louder than I expect. A sharp rip that echoes slightly in the empty room. I pause, listening. Nothing happens. I tear the second page, then the third. Each page represents a meeting where women learn to stay quiet. A bonus justified. A complaint buried. A hand placed where it didn't belong, followed by silence and fear and self-doubt. I tear carefully, evenly, not shredding wildly, not dramatic, just thorough. I think of Sarah's shoulders tightening, Naomi's forced smile, Lisa's lowered voice in the break room. I think of the way Richard said under my desk like it was a favor. Page by page, the leverage disappears. Halfway through, my phone vibrates. I don't look at it. This moment isn't about him anymore. By the time I reach the final page, my pulse is steady, my breathing slow. The last tear feels almost anticlimactic. Just paper. Just ink. Just a structure that only mattered because people believed in it. I gather the torn pieces into neat stacks and leave them on the table. No mess, no chaos, just proof of absence. When I stand, the room feels lighter. I walk out just as footsteps echo in the corridor. Emily? Richard's voice carries panic now, not controlled, not polished, raw. I turn slowly. His face drains as he sees the table behind me, the papers, the absence of order, the finality of it. What did you do? He demands, stepping closer. I removed your leverage, I say calmly. You can't. He stops himself, glancing at the cameras too late. His voice drops. This contract is the firm. No, I reply. You are the problem. He storms past me, grabbing the remains, hands shaking as he flips through useless fragments. Do you have any idea what you've done? He snaps. Investors will tear you apart, the board. They'll ask why the clause was triggered, I interrupt, and why no one intervened sooner. He freezes. I watch realization crawl across his face, slow and ugly. You don't have proof, he says. I meet his eyes. You'd be surprised how many people start talking when they realize you're no longer protected. For the first time since I met him, Richard Hale looks small. Phones start ringing in the hallway. Loud. Urgent. The quiet obedience of the firm fractures into chaos. What the hell is going on? Someone shouts. Richard turns back to me, eyes wild. I can destroy you. I don't raise my voice. I don't need to. No, I say. Now you understand. Security appears at the end of the corridor, confused, unsure who to follow. Partners spill out of offices, faces tight with fear and calculation. I straighten my jacket. I don't feel victorious. I feel finished. As I walk past him, he reaches out, grabbing my wrist. You think this ends here? He hisses. I look down at his hand, then back at his face. It already has, I say. I free myself easily and keep walking. Behind me, the machine starts eating itself. And for the first time since I walked into Hale & Partners, the silence that follows doesn't feel obedient. It feels earned. Panic has a sound. It's not screaming. It's not chaos right away. It's the sudden, uncontrolled ringing of phones all at once, the way people stop whispering and start speaking too fast, too loud, over each other. It's the smell of sweat under expensive cologne. It's the crack in a voice that was trained never to break. I hear it before I see it. By the time I reach my desk, the floor is vibrating with it. Assistants are standing instead of sitting. Partners are pacing with phones pressed hard to their ears. Someone from IT is arguing with legal about access logs. No one is looking at me directly anymore, not because I'm invisible, but because I'm radioactive. Richard comes out of the conference room like a storm that's lost direction. What the hell did you do? He shouts, forgetting for the first time in years where he is, who might be listening. The room goes quiet anyway. Instinctively. Old habits die slowly. I turn toward him. I did exactly what you taught me to do. He laughs, sharp and hysterical. You think this is clever? You think you're untouchable now? His phone rings again. He ignores it. Then another. And another. I don't move. I don't need to. You just wiped out $20 million, he says, lowering his voice, stepping closer. You've crippled the firm. No, I reply. I exposed it. That's when his phone buzzes with a name he can't ignore. I see it reflected in the glass wall behind him. The client. The one. He answers. Yes, of course. No, I can explain. This is a misunderstanding. His face changes as he listens. The color drains. His mouth opens slightly like he's trying to interrupt but can't find a gap. I understand, he says finally. Yes. We'll cooperate. He hangs up slowly. For a moment, no one speaks. Then the emails start landing. I hear the notification chime echo from desk to desk like a countdown. Legal notices, emergency board summons, compliance alerts marked urgent. Richard turns on me again, but something essential is missing now. The certainty, the authority. You think they'll side with you? He snaps. You're nothing here. I tilt my head. Check your inbox. He hesitates just long enough to tell me I'm right. His shoulders slump a fraction as he scrolls. Board members requesting explanations. HR reopening closed cases. External counsel CC'd on threads that were never meant to see daylight. Someone finally says it out loud. Oh my God, Naomi whispers. Sarah is standing now too, her hands clenched into fists at her sides. Our eyes meet. She doesn't look afraid anymore. Richard runs a hand through his hair, breathing hard. This can still be fixed. I almost feel sorry for him. Almost. You shredded the contract, he says. That's criminal. The cameras recorded it, I answer calmly. And the clause allows termination based on executive conduct. The paper was symbolic. His mouth twitches. You planned this? Yes. You manipulated the situation. No, I say. I documented it. Security finally approaches, uncertain, looking from Richard to me like children watching their parents fight. Sir, one of them says awkwardly, the board is asking you to come upstairs. Now. Richard doesn't move. Instead, he steps closer to me, lowering his voice so only I can hear. I can still destroy you, he says. You'll never work in this industry again. I study his face, the lines that weren't there before, the fear leaking through the arrogance. You already tried, I reply. This is just the part where it stops working. For a second, just one, I see it. The calculation, the instinct to threaten, to bargain, to pivot into something uglier. Then his phone rings again. He answers without looking at the screen. Yes? A pause. Yes, I understand. Another pause. Longer. No. No, I didn't realize that was being reviewed. When he hangs up, his hands are shaking. They're suspending my authority, he says, more to himself than to anyone else. Around us, people are watching openly now. No more pretending. No more careful blindness. The power shift is visible. Tangible. Richard Hale, the man who made careers disappear with a smile, is standing in the middle of his own empire, stripped of protection, surrounded by people who are suddenly remembering every moment they stayed silent. I pick up my bag. Where do you think you're going? He asks hoarsely. Home, I answer. For the first time since I started here. As I walk toward the elevators, the floor doesn't part for him anymore. It parts for the truth. And behind me, panic keeps spreading, not because of what I did, but because everyone now understands what they allowed. The doors close. For the first time in days, my phone is silent. And for the first time in weeks, so is the fear. I expect to sleep. Instead, I lie awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying everything with surgical clarity, the tearing of paper. Richard's voice cracking, the way the room shifted when power stopped protecting him. I don't feel triumphant. I feel alert, like my body doesn't trust calm yet. At 6:12 a.m., my phone buzzes. Unknown number. Please, we need to talk. I don't reply. At 6:18, this has gone too far. At 6:25, I can fix this. By the time I shower, dress, and pour coffee, there are 12 messages. Different tones. Different strategies. Anger gives way to urgency. urgency to something close to panic. When I arrive at the building, security stops me. "They asked for you upstairs," one of them says. Not Richard. They. The boardroom smells like coffee that's been reheated too many times and fear that no one knows how to ventilate. Half the chairs are filled. External counsel, HR, 2 board members I've only ever seen in company newsletters. Richard is already there. He looks smaller in the daylight. His suit is still expensive, but it hangs differently now, like it's lost its authority along with its owner. His eyes flick to me when I enter, relief flashing across his face before he can stop it. "Emily," he says, standing too quickly. "Thank God." I take a seat across from him. The meeting starts without pleasantries. Questions, timelines, compliance language that suddenly matters. Richard answers badly, too defensively, too emotionally. He interrupts himself, contradicts earlier statements. Then, inevitably, the room empties. Not literally. People step out one by one, murmuring about calls, documents, next steps, strategically leaving us alone. I understand why. Richard leans forward, elbows on the table, hands clasped like he's praying. "I was wrong," he says. His voice is lower now, quieter. "I misjudged you. I misjudged the situation." I don't speak. "I can fix it," he continues. "I'll step back. I'll sign whatever they want. I'll issue apologies, settlements, anything." He looks at me the way he used to, like he's still negotiating, but there's something desperate underneath it now. "I never meant to hurt anyone," he says quickly. "You know how this industry is." I do speak then. "You meant to benefit." He flinches. "This doesn't have to end like this," he says. "You're smart. You understand leverage." "Yes," I reply. "I do." He swallows. "I can make sure you're protected." Quietly. "You'll land on your feet." Then, instinctively, automatically, he reaches for the only currency he's ever really trusted. "We could talk at my place," he says, away from all this noise. The silence that follows is brutal. I look at him for a long moment. Really look. The man who built an empire on implication and fear. The man who thought sex was a shortcut to obedience. The man who confused access to women with ownership of them. "You don't invite anyone anymore," I say calmly. His mouth opens, closes. "I don't need your protection," I continue. "And I don't negotiate my dignity." For the first time, he doesn't argue. His shoulders slump. He sits back in his chair, smaller than I've ever seen him. "I didn't think anyone would ever push back," he admits. "That was your mistake," I reply. "You thought silence meant consent." A knock at the door interrupts us. HR returns. Legal follows. Faces set. Decisions already made. Richard doesn't look at me again as they begin outlining next steps. Suspension, investigation, external review, language carefully chosen to sound procedural, not catastrophic. But it is. When the meeting ends, he stands slowly, like gravity has increased. As he passes me, he stops. "You ruined me," he says quietly. I meet his eyes. "No. You finally met consequences." He has no response to that. I walk out of the boardroom alone, heels clicking against marble that no longer intimidates me. In the hallway, Sarah is waiting. Naomi stands beside her. Lisa too. No one speaks at first. Then Sarah exhales. "Thank you." That's when it hits me. Not the relief, not the victory, but the weight of how long they've all been waiting for someone to say no and mean it. As I step into the elevator, I realize something else. Power doesn't vanish when you take it from one man. It redistributes. And for the first time, it isn't sitting at the end of a desk. The firm doesn't collapse. That's the part no one expected. For weeks, Hale and Partners lives under fluorescent light and scrutiny. Auditors move through the halls like surgeons. HR schedules interviews in rooms that used to host celebrations. Lawyers who once avoided eye contact now speak carefully, precisely, as if words have finally regained weight. Richard Hale is fired on a Tuesday, not quietly, not respectfully. The email goes out firm-wide at 9:03 a.m., stripped of adjectives and sentiment. Effective immediately. An investigation is announced. External oversight. Zero tolerance. Language polished to signal distance, not remorse. People read it twice. Then a third time. Someone claps. It stops almost immediately, but the sound lingers. Women start talking. Not all at once. Not bravely at first. But they speak. In fragments, in timelines, in stories that suddenly align. HR's inbox fills. Legal requests extensions. Patterns emerge where coincidences used to hide. Sarah sits across from me one evening in an empty conference room, hands wrapped around a paper cup like it's the only solid thing left. "I thought it was just me," she says quietly. "It never is," I reply. Naomi tells her story next, then Lisa, then others whose names I don't know yet. Careers stalled, transfers suggested, reviews mysteriously downgraded, invitations that came with expectations, sex implied, never written, always deniable. The clause does its work. The client rebuilds the contract, without Richard. Same money, new oversight, new leadership. The board learns what accountability actually costs and what ignoring it almost did. I'm asked to stay, not as a favor, not as leverage, as a choice. I walk past Richard's office a week later. The glass walls are bare now. No desk, no skyline claimed like property. Just an empty room reflecting whoever passes by. I don't stop. Career growth, I realize, isn't a ladder someone else holds steady while you climb. It's a table you flip when the rules are rigged. I think about the first day. The silence. The laughter that followed him like training. The way I almost convinced myself that endurance was the same as strength. It isn't. Strength is saying no when yes would be easier. Strength is knowing that ambition doesn't require submission. Strength is understanding that sex offered under pressure isn't desire. It's theft dressed as opportunity. I leave the building that evening as the sun drops behind the skyline, the glass reflecting something unfamiliar. Possibility. Tomorrow, the work continues. There will be meetings, deadlines, politics. Systems don't heal overnight. But something fundamental has shifted. Fear doesn't sit at the head of the table anymore. Neither does he. And for the first time since I stepped into Hale and Partners, I don't feel like I survived. I feel like I chose. That's real growth.